वर्णानामर्थसङ्घानां रसानां छन्दसामपि मङ्गलानां च कर्तारौ वन्दे वाणी विनायकौ। रामाय रामभद्राय रामचन्द्राय वेधसे रघुनाथाय नाथाय सीतायाः पतये नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। श्री राम जय जय राम जानकी जीवन राम। श्री राम जय जय राम जानकी जीवन राम। पतित पावन राम हरे जय राघव सुंदर राम। पतित पावन राम हरे जय राघव सुंदर राम। श्री राम जय जय राम जानकी जीवन राम। श्री राम जय
जय राम जानकी जीवन राम।
पतित पावन राम हरे जय राघव सुंदर राम। पतित पावन राम हरे जय राघव सुंदर राम। दीनाधरना राम हरे जय मारुति सेवित राम। दीनाधरना राम हरे जय मारुति सेवित राम। जय जय राम जय रघुराम जानकी जीवन राम। जय जय राम जय रघुराम जानकी जीवन राम। श्री राम जय जय राम जानकी जीवन राम। श्री राम जय राम जानकी जीवन राम। Thank you. Very beautiful drumming. Thank you. My talk today comes from the Ramayan, the Ramcharitmanas of Tulsidas. And I want this morning to share with you just a couple of points from the Ramayana about family life and about a good family life, which I think is relevant to all of us, whatever stage of life we are in. We are parents, we are grandparents, we are uncles, we are aunts, we are mothers. We are fathers. And I think we have a lot to learn from the text about family life. You know, we think of family life, the basis of family life is having common parents, sharing a father, sharing a mother. But it's also true that one can be a parent in other ways. One can adopt children, or one can act in parental role to young people who may not be one's children, sometimes uncles, and take upon themselves the role of parents. But having common parents, these are biological parents or adopted parents, or you take on the role of parents, is not enough. Biology is not enough. We know that. If biology was enough to create a good family, then all one had to do was to give birth to children. But we know that creating a meaningful family takes a lot more than the fact of giving birth to children. It is something that one has to work intentionally, mindfully at. The real work of parenting begins after. In many ways after children are born, and there is never a guarantee that a good family comes out of the fact of having biological or adopted children. So let us look at to see what we might learn from the Ramayana. You are all familiar with the main events in the Ramayana, so I will just summarize very quickly. Beginning with the return of Sri Ram to Ayodhya after he was sent, or he was taken by his guru to study and to learn. So as you know, this Ayodhya was full of joy. People were very happy that he was returning with his brothers, and they all had a single thought in their mind that Dasarath would appoint him as the king of Ayodhya. This is what they all wanted. And coincidentally, his father was also thinking in the same way. He was aware that he was growing older, he didn't want to hold on to power too long, and so he needed to make arrangements for his succession, to hand over the kingdom to his son. So he called his family priest, Vashishta, informed him of his decision to appoint Sri Ram as his successor, and asked him to make arrangements for the coronation ceremony and to inform Sri Ram. So Vashishta went to Sri Ram, and in fact Sri Ram was very surprised to see his guru at his door, because normally he would go to his guru, but he knows something very important when his guru comes to visit him. So Guru Vashishta told him of his father's decision and instructed him that let's prepare for the coronation ceremony. Now think with me, here is a young man about to inherit one of the wealthiest kingdoms, the kingdom of Ayodhya. He's just learned that his father has chosen him to be the king. He will be Ayodhya Raja. What should we expect from him? What kind of reaction would you expect from someone who has gotten this news that he is going to be the king? How do people respond? Someone who's chosen in a cabinet to be the prime minister, or someone who is elected as president, what is the normal response? So the writer, Tulsidas, says something interesting. That when Ram heard from his guru that he will be the king, in the language of the text, he says, Ram Hriday Asa Bismaya Bhayav. Hriday means the heart. So Ram Hriday, in his heart, Ram felt very fearful. He became very anxious and scared. Rama Hriday Bismaya Bhayahu. His heart was troubled and full of fear. What would cause him to be afraid? To having received this news that he will be king. Perhaps he feels unprepared. He's worried about how he will fulfill this great role. His father was a very honored, highly respected king. Would I be like my father? Am I prepared to ascend the throne of Ayodhya? Will I fail? Those kinds of thoughts can cause one to, when you have a big position, those are kind of natural thoughts that you are likely to have. And these will be good reasons to be fearful and to be anxious. But in fact, his fears had nothing to do with worries or concerns about his ability to be a good king, to fulfill this role. His anxieties were about his family. Interesting, this was his first thought. His thought went to his family. So you may ask, why would he worry about his family? Why would he be anxious about family? What would cause him to have fears about family? So this is what then Tulsidas tells us, what caused him in his heart, Ram Hridaya Asa Bismaya Bhayo. What caused him to be troubled and fearful? These two verses from Ayodhya Kanda. जन्म में एक संग सब भाई भोजन शयन खेली लड़काई जन्म में एक संग सब भाई भोजन शयन खेली लड़काई कर्ण बेढ़ उपवीत विवाह कर्ण बेढ़ उपवीत विवाह संग संग सब है उचार श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम
जय जय राम
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम श्री राम जय राम
जय जय राम
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम विमल वंश येहु अनचित एकु बंधु भावी बरेहु अभिषेकु प्रभु सप्रेम पछितानि तुम्हारी हरहु भगत मन कई दिलानी श्री राम
जय राम जय जय राम
श्री राम जय राम जय जय राम. So now we see exactly what is in his heart. This is how he thinks when he gets this news that he's going to be the king. Janme ek sang sab bhai. All of us, my brothers and I, were born close to each other. He was a few minutes older, but they were all born on the same day. Janme ek, we had one birth, all of us as brothers. Bhojana, meals. We shared every meal together. We sat and we ate. We never ate separately. We ate together. We slept side by side. Bhojana Shayana. We slept side by side with each other. Keli Larikai. And we played together. Born together, having meals together, sleeping next to each other, playing together. Sangha Sangha Sababhai Uchaha. We shared all of our joys and all of our sorrows together. But there was no more problem. Vimala Vamsayahu Anuchita Eku. But now there was something that we can't share. And he describes it as, this is a flaw, this is a problem. Because, but Bandhu Vivai Barehu Abhisheku. But this is now the tradition that the eldest must become the king. Only one can sit on the throne of Ayodhya, and I can't share this with them. So this is his fear, that the throne to which he is about to ascend can't be shared with his brothers. So for the first time there is something that can't be shared. Only, as I said, the eldest can become the king. This is the ancient tradition. So he's worried, how would this impact my relationship with my brothers? Would I lose my closeness to them now? Is this the end of this close relationship that we have had, that he describes in such detail? Will I now for them be king and not brother? How will our brotherly relationship be adversely affected by me now having more power than they have? Would it create a distance? Would my family life change, my relationship with my brother? Would I now grow distant from them because I am going to be treated differently as the king? How will my own power, the wealth that I will enjoy as king, the success, how would it cause my family relationships to suffer? This is not typical thinking. This is not normal thinking. I don't think that King Charles, when he learned that he was going to be king, started to worry about how this would affect his relationship with his sister and his brothers. And in ancient times and even today, we see so much rivalries for power, even among brothers seeking to undermine each other. So it's what we're seeing here from Shri Ram is quite extraordinary. We should not take it for granted that he has one worry. How becoming king will affect his family life, his relationship with his siblings. But this is because, the kind of person he is. While he will become king, it is clear that he's not greedy for the throne or for power. It is just because of the tradition of the eldest becoming the king. In fact, he values his family relationships even more than he values becoming the king of Ayodhya. Becoming the king was no reason for him to become arrogant or to look down upon his siblings. And I think, clearly Tulsidas wants us to know that Ram responded with love for his brothers, his family. He does not see the throne as an opportunity to show off on them, to make them feel lesser, because he is now the king. He has a very different attitude to power. He knows that power and wealth can cause friction. When one person is more successful or wealthy than another, there's a potential for friction and for damage to family relationships. So he cares about his family, he thinks about them. And the point I'm trying to make is that this is essential for good family. Caring about each other, concerned about how one's own choices might impact or have effect on others. The opposite of it is I don't care. The opposite is I'm going to make my choice, I have achieved this, I don't worry about what impact it will have on my brothers or my sisters or any other member of my family. It doesn't mean that families will never disagree or have differences, but I think one can disagree with care and one can disagree without care also. So I think that here is something important that we can learn from Sri Ram. Clearly, by the way in which he reacts to this news, and what is at the top of his mind, it is very clear that he was brought up, or I would say the brothers were brought up by their father and their mothers, not to see themselves as rivals or competitors to each other. This is how they were raised. And we should not, this is something we should never do with our children. Compare them favorably or unfavorably with each other, which is something that's quite common. You know, we might praise the successful one much more than we praise those who in our eyes are not so successful. So in doing that, we create tensions in our family, and then we teach our children to see each other as rivals, competitors to each other, and this is often a source of friction and conflict in families. It sometimes happens in so many families that we might favor a male child over a female child. And we convey the message often in ways that we don't really realize. That we might be expressing a preference for the son or the daughter, and we create deep pain and anxiety in the girl, knowing that she's not as preferred in a family as her brother. So all of these ways can be very harmful to family life. We should not raise our children as rivals or competitors to each other. And we see Ram clearly not doing that. Now, we might ask the question, how do we know that he was sincere in what he said? I'm really worried about how becoming king will affect my relationship with my brothers, because he's saying, I want to be equal with them. I want to continue sharing with them as we shared before my father made this announcement. So how do we know that he was sincere in what he was saying? And I think the evidence is there very clearly in the Ramayan before us. Because when he learns that he's one of the queen mothers wanted her own son, Bharat, to be the king, he does not stand in the way. He's not unhappy for his brother to be the king. In fact, he's happy that Bharat has a chance now to be the king. If he was not sincere, he would hold on to that throne at all costs, which he didn't. You know, there is in the Ayodhya Kand of the Ramayan, there's a very interesting discussion among the ladies in the palace. These are the senior women in Dasaratha's palace. And when they heard the news that Kaikeyi wanted her own son, Bharat, to be the king, and not only for him to be the king, but for Ram to be banished, to be sent away, as a group they went to her. They went to Kaikeyi. And they said to her, Bharata hi avasi dehu yuvaraja, kanana kaha ram karakaju. She says, Kaikeyi, by all means, have your son become the king. Bharata hi avasi dehu yuvaraja. Let Bharat, if you want, the king made a promise to you, let your son sit on this throne. But why exile him? Why send him away? Kanana kaha Rama karakaj. Why are you asking that he is to be banished for 14 years? And then here is the important line they said to her. Nahina Rama Raja ke bhuke. Ram is not greedy for this throne. As a leader, he doesn't suffer from greed. He's not going to fight for this throne. So Bharat can be the king. He will agree to this. Dharma dhurina vishaya rasa duke. There's only one thing that Ram is concerned about, they say to her. He wants to do the right thing. He doesn't want power. He just wants to do dharma dhurina. He just wants to always do the right thing, but not necessarily to become the king. He's not greedy for the throne. He's committed to righteousness. Guru griha basahu Rama taji. Let him, Kaikeyi, go and live with his guru for these years. Why are you sending him to the forest? Let him live with his guru. I share this verse because it shows that Ram's nature was widely known among these ladies. Of course, the argument didn't appeal to her. She wouldn't separate the two things. Her son becoming king and Ram's banishment. The last point I want to make this morning to you about family life is that there were many reasons why Sri Ram accepted the Queen Mother's, Kaikeyi's desire that he be sent away for 14 years. He felt that he had to, it was a matter of truth. His father had given his word to her, had pledged his word that she could ask for these promises. So there was a question of satya or truth at stake, which is very important in our tradition. And he wanted to honor the fact of truth. But it's related, but there is an even more important reason. Concern for his family. As odd as it may sound, he accepted this 14 years because of concern for his family. Again, family was uppermost in his mind. What do I mean? He was concerned about the moral reputation of his family. He felt that that would be a terrible loss if his family lost its moral reputation. His father was, of course, king, he occupied a very prominent position, and he knew what a terrible thing it would be if people stopped trusting my father, if his word didn't matter again. And they would. Whatever it is, people would say, but he did promise her. And he failed at this important time to honor his promise. So as a leader, at that time, honoring your word was very important. Promises given were promises kept. You don't make promises carelessly. Words spoken were very important, and Sri Ram knew that. He knew that trust is vital to all relationships. Whether it's a relationship between child and parent. If your child doesn't trust you or you don't trust your child, the relationship begins to suffer. between husband and wife, all relationships in the family, perhaps the most important ingredient is trust. And this is true also for the relationship between leader and society, leader and community. So he knew that he had to protect the moral reputation of his family, even though it involved suffering for him, a life of 14 years in exile. You know, there's that famous line in the text. I think we all know it well. Raghukul riti sada chali aayi, pran jai baru bachan na jai. It went deep into him. Raghukul riti. This is the custom of our family. Raghukul riti means the practice, the custom, the well-established tradition. What is it? Pran jai. That we will give up our lives. Baru vachan na jai. But we will not break a promise. We will not betray the promise made. And he was not going to be the one to do it. The moral reputation of his family was very important. I think this is something to which we must always give thought in our family members. We think a lot, as we ought to, about taking care of our families, ensuring that our children, our grandchildren are well educated, they have all of these necessities for successful life. And that's an obligation to do that. And I think that we should be, as Sri Ram demonstrates here, that we should also be concerned about the moral life of our families, the moral health of our families, which means we should not make choices that hurt the moral reputation of our families. We have to do all that we can to preserve that trust. I close. I told us when I gave this talk some time ago. Went on a little bit longer. There's so much. I'm just making 2 points this morning. So on one of my visits to Trinidad, very often when I travel around, people recognize me quite quickly because of my family. I think we have some very prominent physical features that they recognize. But my elder brother is a politician. So whenever I go out in the public and people say, do you come from the Rambachan family? I have always to pause a little bit to know if they're supportive of him or not supportive of him, because I have experience in the past hostile reaction. So I have to read my response. I have to read the response before I say yes or no. So that once I went and I was going to buy some oranges, and there was an elderly gentleman selling oranges. So I went to him and asked him if his oranges were sweet, and he said yes, the oranges are very nice. And then the question came, are you Rambachan? So he was elderly, so I said, if he becomes abusive and so on, that's okay. It doesn't look like he can do me much. He could do me much harm. So I said, yes, I am. I said, oh yes. And then he obviously knew my family, so he asked me, was this person your father? And I said, yes, he was my father. And then this very early said, I worked for your father. And then he added something that I found, was very profound and brought a lot of joy to me. In one sentence, he said, and your father was a good man to us. He was good to us as an employer. My father was a businessman, and he was good to us. And that meant so much to me to hear from this elderly man, more than anything else, to know that my father left a good memory of being kind and generous towards his employees, that they thought well of him, that his moral reputation, even though he passed away many, many years ago, his moral reputation was intact. And as a child, as a son, that brought me joy. And that was meaningful. So moral reputation of our families, I regard as very important. Something to be protected, something to be cherished, something to be valued. And we should all be mindful and thoughtful about our choices and not hurting our families, whether it's, materially or, in this case, morally. So this, dear brothers and sisters, was what I wanted to share with you this morning. A message from the Ramayana about Ram's commitment to family life. And I will conclude with Kirtan and then hand it back to Anandi. Please sing with us. गाते चलो मन में हरे कृष्णा नामा, 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 हरे कृष्णा रामा सदा सुख धामा, हरे कृष्णा रामा सदा सुख धामा, हरे कृष्णा रामा सदा सुख धामा, गाते चलो मन में हरे कृष्णा रामा, गाते चलो मन में हरे कृष्णा रामा, तन मन में रामा, नस नस में रामा, तन मन में रामा, brothers, for being such a